Okay, let's really dig into something we all hear pretty much every day. Popular music.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Totally. And we've been looking at discussions, thoughts about how technology is, shaping what we listen to. And our mission today, it's pretty straightforward, is this drive for, like a technically perfect sound, costing us the emotional core, that feeling, that kind of heart and soul.
That's a big question because you hear it, right? So many tracks, the vocals are just flawless, instruments crystal clear.
Spot on, yeah. And it makes you wonder, is that the whole story? Or is something maybe getting lost?
It's definitely a question that resonates. I think a lot of listeners probably sense a shift, even if they can't quite put their finger on it.
Right.
When everything sounds so perfect, you got to ask, what are we gaining and what are we maybe losing? We're looking mainly at, well, digital tools, pitch correction in vocals, timing stuff, how instruments sound.
Exactly. And for me, I sometimes find myself missing those little, I don't know, cracks, those human moments.
Imperfections, yeah.
Like when a singer's voice wavers just a tiny bit, but it's packed with raw feeling. That's the bit that sticks with you.
Oh, absolutely. That rings so true. Those slight things of breath, holding a note a fraction differently, they weren't always mistakes.
No.
Often they were choices.
Yeah.
Or just real emotion pouring out right then and there. Think about Janis Joplin or Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Janis Joplin. Her voice just cuts right through you, doesn't it?
It really does.
It wasn't polished, not by today's standards maybe, but it felt so authentic. You felt it.
Precisely. Listen to her live stuff. The recording might not be pristine, but that emotional intensity.
Yeah.
Undeniable. Every little strain, every break, it feels real.
Yeah.
Now, compare that to a lot of pop today, where vocals are tweaked to perfection with things like autotune. It corrects the pitch, right? Makes every note perfect. But in doing that, does it smooth away that raw edge, that very human nuance?
Yeah, it's kind of like aiming for this flawless picture, but instead of using real paint with texture and stuff, you're digitally coloring inside the lines.
It's a great analogy.
It might look perfect, technically, but you lose the subtle shades, the grit. It feels like we've maybe optimized for perfection over expression.
That's a really insightful way to put it. And the worry is, by scrubbing away those relatable human imperfections, we might be weakening that deep connection music can forge. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? Technical brilliance, but maybe less heart.
So does that mean listeners today, especially younger ones, who grew up with this sound, do they even notice what might be missing? Or is this just normal now, the expectation?
That's a really interesting question. It's probable that, well, more seasoned listeners do feel a difference, even if they can't articulate exactly what's changed.
Right.
There's a reason we connect so deeply with artists who weren't afraid to be imperfect, vulnerable. Think about early Springsteen or Louis Armstrong. Their voices weren't perfect.
Oh, yeah, Springsteen and Satchmo. That gravelly vibe, totally unique, unmistakable.
Exactly. Those flaws were part of their magic, their signature sound. But autotune, when it's really cranked up, forces every single note into this unnaturally perfect pitch. And the result of that level of, well, manipulation, it can really flatten the emotional curve of a song. It can start to sound almost robotic, manufactured.
Totally. Like he was assembled, not performed. Clean, polished, yeah, but missing that organic human thing.
Yeah.
So if vocals are getting pitched perfectly, is something similar happening with rhythm, with the timing?
That's a crucial point, yes. This quest for perfection doesn't stop at vocals. Timing is another huge area in digital production. We need to talk about quantization.
Okay, quantization. Let's unpack that. What's going on there?
Okay, so think about the drum beat or maybe the bass line in a lot of modern tracks. Very often they're quantized, meaning they're digitally snapped onto a perfect timing grid. Every beat lands precisely on the mark, no deviation.
Okay.
And while that makes it super tight, super precise, maybe almost robotic, it can also strip away the natural groove, the human feel.
Lifeless. That's the word that jumps out at me.
Yeah.
It's like a drum machine just looping perfectly.
Yeah.
Instead of a real drummer feeling the music. There's no push and pull, no swagger. It just happens perfectly on time.
Exactly. A good drummer, a really good one, they play with time. They might sit back slightly behind the beat or push ahead just a hair.
Creates that groove.
It creates tension, release, makes the music breathe, feel alive. Those tiny variations are where the magic often is.
You really hear that in older live stuff. I remember listening to like live Elvis recordings.
Yeah.
The tempo would subtly shift, the band moving with him. It wasn't locked down.
Yes, you feel that energy, that looseness. It's like they're all communicating non-verbally, feeling it together in that moment, not just hitting marks on a grid.
Right. Like the whole band's plugged into the same vibe. You just don't get that same feeling when everything's perfectly computer aligned.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if people even play together anymore or just assemble tracks.
It's a fair question. And it highlights the consequence. Using tools like timing grids removes those subtle human variations that carry so much emotion. You lose that exciting unpredictability of live performance. Skilled players use timing expressively, pushing a beat, pulling back. Those are artistic choices. Quantization just erases them.
Right. Like when a band gets really into it live
Yeah.
and the tempo just naturally ramps up a bit from the energy, you feel that.
Absolutely. But quantization smooths all that out, erases the human element. It forces you to ask, what do we value more? Flawless precision or imperfect human feeling?
Man, it's like putting a filter on someone's face to smooth out every single wrinkle. Sure, it looks perfect, but you lose the character, the story.
That's it.
And what's music without some kind of story, even an emotional one?
That's a powerful way to think about it. And when you layer these things, the auto-tune vocals, the quantized beats, the rigid timing, the end result can be music that's technically perfect, sure, but feels, well, sterile, lacking that genuine spark. And the concern, maybe the bigger concern, is that this could be like training listeners not to expect that depth, that heart, that soul. That maybe it's cultivating less discerning taste.
Which kind of leads us to the words, right? The lyrics.
Yes.
Just like maybe we traded emotional timing for perfect beats. Does it feel like something's getting lost in the lyrics too? They're supposed to connect, tell stories, make us feel?
Ideally, yes.
But so often now, you listen,
Yeah.
and where's the substance? It feels like simple lines repeated over and over, like placeholders, almost.
There is often a simplicity, yeah, and a lot of repetition. It can feel a bit shallow, maybe, compared to some older songwriting traditions.
Yeah, like the hook is just one phrase, again and again. No, look, not every song needs to be some deep poem, right? There's room for fun, catchy stuff.
Of course, pop music needs hooks.
But when so much of it feels lyrically thin, you gotta wonder, is it laziness, lack of talent, or just what works now? It feels a bit like a missed opportunity sometimes.
I think that's fair. You think back to songwriters like, say, Jim Croce, Billy Joel, Leonard Cohen.
Oh yeah, storytellers.
Absolute storytellers. They painted pictures, explored complex feelings. Cohen especially, his lyrics were pure poetry. They really invited you into a world. That kind of deep craft seems less common in the mainstream today.
Totally. I had this friend, right? Could tell a story around a campfire, just hold everyone completely captivated. Lyrics should kind of do that too, shouldn't they? Stick with you.
The best ones do. And look, even if the lyrics aren't super deep, maybe the music itself, the instruments could carry the emotional weight.
You hope so.
But with so many digitally generated sounds, sometimes even the instruments can sound a bit hollow.
Hollow is a good word. Real instruments, they have character, don't they?
They do.
Tiny tuning quirks, the way a real drum skin vibrates, the breath in a flute. It sounds alive.
Yeah.
But so much now is perfectly clean, perfectly replicated digital sound. It lacks that organicness.
Exactly. That aliveness you're talking about often comes from those tiny imperfections. A guitar string slightly off, the complex overtones of a real violin. It's hard to perfectly mimic that richness digitally. When everything's locked perfectly in tune and timed digitally, you lose some of that complex interaction, those rich, layered harmonies that come from slight natural variations.
It's like the difference between food that's perfectly uniform but kind of bland and something home-cooked with maybe a few flaws but tons of flavor.
That's a great analogy. One has soul, the other might just be functional.
Yeah.
And that really feels like the core trade-off we're seeing. Trading authenticity maybe for this clinical perfection. There's less grit, fewer smudges, less soul.
So does this still resonate with listeners today? Where has the heart and soul gone?
It makes you really ponder that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's up to us to kind of rediscover it, remind ourselves, and maybe others, what that real human feeling in music actually sounds like.
Perhaps. Maybe the answer is looking back sometimes, reconnecting with that raw, imperfect humanity that's always been there in the music that truly moves us.
Yeah.
Because that, I think, is where the real magic is, that connection.
Couldn't agree more. Raw and real. That's what lasts.
Indeed. And maybe that's a good place to pause this particular deep dive. Thank you for joining us and thinking through this stuff.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in and digging deep with us. Catch you on the next one. Take care.